When we think about loneliness, we usually see it as just a feeling, right? An emotional state. But what if it was something more? What if it's a force so powerful it can physically change the very structure of your brain? Let's dive into the science, because it reveals a story that's way more complex and, frankly, more startling than you might think. So, where does our story begin? Well, it starts at one of the most remote and hostile places on Earth, a place where isolation isn't just a feeling, it's the fundamental reality of your existence. Take a look at this. This is the Neumayer 3rd Polar Station in Antarctica. For 14 months, a small team of researchers lived right here, totally cut off from the rest of the world. We're talking temperatures dropping below minus 50 degrees Celsius and winter winds just screaming past at over 100 kilometers an hour. But the real experiment here wasn't about the weather. It was about what this profound, crushing isolation was actually doing to their brains. And the results? They were absolutely stunning. After the mission was over, brain scans showed that these expeditioners had lost physical volume in their prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain right behind your forehead that's responsible for all your complex decision-making. This wasn't just a feeling of being alone. This was a measurable, physical change in the very architecture of their minds. This physical transformation points to a really bizarre and frustrating paradox that sits at the very heart of chronic loneliness. It's a kind of neurological trap, really. Okay, so before we go any further, it's super important to understand this distinction. Social isolation, like what the Antarctic team went through, is objective. You can measure it. It's a lack of social contact. But loneliness is subjective. It's that internal feeling of being disconnected, something you can feel even when you're in a crowded room. And this right here is the catch-22. The lonely brain deeply, desperately desires connection, and yet at the same time, it starts rewiring itself to see other people as more threatening and less reliable. So you want to reach out, but your own brain is putting up this defensive wall, trapping you even further inside that isolation. Now, you might be thinking, hey, that just sounds like social anxiety. But researchers were actually surprised to find that's not the case. As neuroscientist John Liebers points out, the brain activity is just different. The brain's fear center, the amygdala, it doesn't light up in lonely people the same way it does for those with social anxiety. Loneliness is its own unique neurological state. So what exactly is changing inside a lonely brain? Let's take a closer look at the specific rewiring that's actually taking place. So, what is going on in there? Where does the brain's loneliness hotspot actually live? Okay, so what you're looking at here is what scientists call the default network. Think of it as a collection of brain regions that kicks into high gear when your mind is on standby. When you're daydreaming or remembering the past or thinking about other people. And it turns out this is ground zero for loneliness. In people who are chronically lonely, studies show this network isn't just physically larger. It's also more powerfully connected to other parts of the brain. This extra activity helps explain why lonely individuals often get lost in nostalgia, or daydream more about social events, or even imagine these rich social lives with their pets. The brain is basically trying to fill that social void all by itself. But this constant internal churn and the loneliness that's driving it, it is not harmless. Not at all. The physical toll on the body is immense, and it is really well documented. Get this, chronic loneliness raises the risk of dementia by a staggering 40%. And if that wasn't shocking enough, it's linked to an 83% higher risk of death from all causes. I mean, let that sink in. Loneliness is, quite literally, a matter of life and death. But why? Why would our brains and bodies react so violently to a lack of connection? Well, the answer lies deep, deep in our evolutionary past. The late, great neuroscientist John Cacioppo came up with a revolutionary idea. He argued that loneliness isn't some kind of failure or a personal flaw. No, it's an ancient survival signal, just like hunger or thirst. Think about it. That feeling of hunger motivates you to find food. Thirst motivates you to find water. Cacioppo believed loneliness evolved to motivate us to find our tribe, because for our ancestors, being separated from the group was basically a death sentence. It's a biological alarm bell screaming at us to reconnect for our own survival. And this isn't just some cool theory. A fascinating study basically proved it.
Researchers took brain scans of people after they fasted for 10 hours. Then they had the same people isolate for 10 hours. No phones, no human contact, nothing. And the brain scans after social isolation looked remarkably similar to the scans after food deprivation. The brain craves connection just as powerfully as it craves food. So, understanding these deep-seated brain mechanisms isn't just for academic curiosity. It's actually leading to new, really targeted ways to break the vicious cycle of loneliness. We're finally moving beyond just telling people to get out more. These new interventions are so much smarter. They include things like cognitive therapies to literally retrain the brain's negative social bias. There are strategies that target the insula, a part of the brain that helps us trust our gut feelings about people, a skill lonely individuals really struggle with. And there's even coaching on social synchrony, learning to mirror body language or join in activities to rebuild that basic sense of rapport with others.
So, all of this leaves us with one final crucial question. If loneliness isn't some personal failing, but a basic biological signal, a primal cry for connection that's hardwired into our DNA, then how can we start designing our cities, our workplaces, and our communities to be better at answering that call?